Commander Draken's heavy footsteps echoed through what was left of Research Station Alpha 7. The huge dragon-like alien moved slowly through the wreckage, his red eyes scanning the destruction around him. Smoke still rose from twisted pieces of metal and broken glass. The air smelled of burned circuits and melted plastic. Just 12 hours ago, this place had been alive with human voices, children laughing, and the hum of research equipment. Now it looked like a graveyard. The hegemony forces had come without warning, destroying everything in their path. They never left survivors. Draken's scaled claws crunched on debris as he walked deeper into the ruins. His people had been allies with the humans stationed here. He remembered coming to this place for meetings, sharing meals, and learning about human customs. Commander Blake had always been kind to him, offering that bitter human drink called coffee and talking about his family. A soft beeping sound came from his wrist device. His thermal scanner was picking up heat signatures, but they were all cold now. All except one. Draken stopped walking. His heart began beating faster. The scanner showed a small, warm shape hidden behind a fallen support beam. It was impossible. Nothing could have survived the plasma bombardment. But the reading was clear and strong. He moved the heavy metal beam with one powerful arm. Underneath, wrapped in silver emergency blankets, was a human baby. The little girl was maybe 6 months old, with beautiful dark skin and the biggest brown eyes Draken had ever seen. She wasn't crying or screaming. She just looked up at him with curiosity, as if meeting a giant dragon was the most normal thing in the world. "How did you survive, little one?" Draken whispered, his deep voice gentle. He looked around at the destruction. Someone had built a small shelter here, using pieces of the station to create a safe pocket. The thermal blankets had kept her warm, and there were empty food containers nearby. Someone had died protecting this child. The baby reached up with tiny fingers, trying to touch his scaled face. Draken felt something break inside his chest. This innocent life had been spared while everything else was destroyed. She was probably the last human on this entire planet. His communication device buzzed. A message from Hegemony Command appeared on the screen: report all findings. Any survivors must be transferred to processing centers immediately. Draken knew what happened at those processing centers. No one ever came back. The Hegemony didn't believe in mercy, especially not for human survivors. They would study this child, experiment on her, and eventually dispose of her when they were done. He looked down at the baby again. She had grabbed one of his claws with her small hand, holding on tight. Her eyes never left his face, trusting him completely. In that moment, Draken made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "I'm sorry, little one," he said softly, carefully lifting her in his massive arms. "Your family is gone. But you won't be alone." The baby made a small cooing sound and snuggled against his chest. Even through his tough scales, he could feel how tiny and fragile she was. She fit in his arms like she belonged there. Draken thought of Blake, the station commander who had shown him pictures of his daughter every time they met. This had to be her. Blake had been so proud, talking about how smart she was, how she would crawl everywhere and get into everything. "Kaya," Draken said, remembering the name Blake had mentioned so often. "Your name is Kaya." He deleted the thermal reading from his scanner and sent a message to Hegemony Command: no survivors found. Station completely destroyed. As he walked back to his ship, Kaya fell asleep in his arms. Draken knew he was risking everything. If they discovered what he had done, both their lives would be over. But as he looked down at the peaceful face of the human child, he knew he had made the right choice. The stars were dangerous for humans now, but this little girl would have a chance to grow up. She would have a home, protection, and someone who cared about her. Draken would make sure of that. 3 years had passed since that terrible day at Research Station Alpha 7. Now Kaya was a happy, energetic little girl running through the beautiful crystal gardens of Draken's home on Zephyr Prime. The gardens were made of living crystal trees that chimed softly in the wind, creating music that seemed to dance around her as she played. To anyone watching, Kaya looked like a young Zephyrian child with some unusual features. Draken had worked hard to create this illusion. He used special medical technology to alter her appearance slightly, making her skin have a faint scaled pattern and her eyes glow with a soft inner light. The official medical records showed she was his adopted daughter, a rare Zephyrian with genetic differences that explained her unique look. "Papa Draken. Papa Draken." Kaya's voice rang out across the garden as she ran toward the house. Her small feet moved quickly over the smooth crystal pathways, and her laughter filled the air like tiny bells. She was holding something in her hands, waving it excitedly above her head. Draken looked up from his work console where he had been reviewing security reports. Even after 3 years, he still worried constantly about keeping Kaya safe. Every day brought new challenges as she grew smarter and more curious about the world around her. "Look what I did!" Kaya shouted, holding up a broken communication device that had been sitting in Draken's repair pile for weeks. "I fixed the signal booster. Now it can reach 3 times farther than before." Draken's 2 hearts nearly stopped beating. The device in her tiny hands was now humming with perfect efficiency, its display showing signal strength readings that were impossible for the original design. She had somehow rewired the entire internal system, improving it in ways that would impress the best engineers in the galaxy. "Kaya, sweetheart," Draken said carefully, trying to keep his voice calm. "How did you know how to fix this?" She shrugged like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I just looked at it and saw what was wrong. The power flow was all twisted up, so I made it straight again. Want me to fix your computer too? It makes that weird buzzing sound because the cooling system isn't working right." This was the problem Draken faced every day. At only 3 years old, Kaya could solve technical problems that challenged adults with years of training. Her human brain was developing connections at an incredible speed, making her smarter and more capable with each passing month. While Zephyrian children her age were just learning to speak in full sentences, Kaya was having complex conversations about science and technology. "That's wonderful, little one," Draken said, gently taking the device from her hands. "But remember what we talked about? Some of your special talents need to stay our secret, okay?" Kaya nodded seriously, understanding more than any 3-year-old should have to. "Because some people might not understand how different I am, right, Papa?" "That's right. You're perfect just the way you are, but not everyone would see it that way." Living this double life was exhausting for both of them. Draken had to constantly explain away Kaya's advanced abilities to neighbors, friends, and officials. He had created an entire medical history claiming she had rare genetic mutations that made her brain develop differently. The local doctors believed she was just an unusually gifted Zephyrian child with some physical abnormalities. The crystal chimes near the front entrance suddenly rang out, signaling someone was at the door. Draken's blood turned cold when he saw the official government transport landing in his driveway. He quickly gathered up all of Kaya's inventions and projects, shoving them into a hidden compartment he had built into the wall. "Kaya, go to your room and play quietly," he whispered urgently. "Don't come out until I call for you, no matter what you hear." She could sense his worry and didn't argue. "Is everything okay, Papa?" "Everything will be fine," he assured her, though his hearts were racing. "Just remember to act like a normal Zephyrian child if anyone asks you questions. Can you do that for me?" "I'll be good, Papa. I promise." As Kaya disappeared into the house, Draken straightened his clothes and walked to the front door. Through the crystal panels, he could see Inspector Vex standing outside with 2 other officials. They had clipboards and scanning devices, which meant this wasn't a social visit. Some secrets were indeed worth protecting with his life. 9 years had passed since that first government visit, and now Kaya was 12 years old. She had grown into a brilliant young girl with curious dark eyes and a mind that worked faster than anyone around her. Draken had managed to keep her secret safe all these years, but it was becoming harder every day. The problem started when Kaya reached school age. Even in the special classes for gifted Zephyrian children, she stood out like a bright star in the darkness. While other kids struggled with basic math, she was solving complex engineering problems. When they learned simple history, she was analyzing military strategies from ancient wars. Her teachers didn't know what to do with her. They sent reports to the education department, describing her as exceptionally advanced and unlike any student we've ever seen. These reports eventually reached the government offices, where officials began asking uncomfortable questions. "We need to test this child properly," Inspector Vex had declared during his last visit. "Her abilities are far beyond normal range, even for a gifted Zephyrian." That's how Kaya found herself sitting in a sterile white room at the military testing center, facing what they called routine development assessments. The officials told Draken it was just to help plan her education, but he knew better. They were looking for something specific. The first few tests seemed normal enough. Basic intelligence questions, memory games, and problem-solving puzzles. Kaya completed them easily, trying to hold back just enough to seem normal. But then they brought out the military simulations. "This is just a game," the examiner told her, setting up a complex holographic display. "We want to see how you think about strategy and planning." The simulation showed a space battle with dozens of ships moving in complicated patterns. Enemy forces were attacking from multiple directions, and the defensive fleet needed to respond quickly. Most adult officers took hours to analyze these scenarios, and even then, they often missed important details. Kaya studied the display for just a few minutes, her eyes tracking the movement patterns and calculating possibilities in her head. Then she began pointing out weaknesses in the enemy formation, predicting exactly where they would move next, and explaining how to counter their attacks. The lead ship will try to flank from the left in approximately 4 minutes, she said calmly, as if discussing the weather. But if we move our fastest ships to grid coordinate 7 Alpha 3, we can cut off their escape route and force them into a trap. The room fell completely silent. The examiners stared at the holographic display, watching as the simulation played out exactly as Kaya had predicted. Enemy ships moved precisely where she said they would, and her suggested defensive positions worked perfectly. Run Scenario 17, one examiner whispered to another, his voice shaking slightly. They ran scenario after scenario, each one more complex than the last. Every time, Kaya analyzed the enemy movements with frightening accuracy. She predicted tactical decisions that had taken professional strategists years to understand. She saw patterns and connections that escaped even the most experienced military minds. By the end of the day, she had successfully predicted 17 different enemy attack patterns in simulations that were designed to challenge the galaxy's best strategic thinkers. The test results were so incredible that the examiners ran them 3 times to make sure their equipment wasn't broken. That evening, Inspector Vex made his report to his superiors through a secure communication channel. He didn't know that Kaya was hiding in the ventilation system above Draken's study, listening to every word through the air vents. "This isn't a normal Zephyrian child," Vex was saying, his voice tense with excitement and fear. "The tactical analysis she performed today was beyond anything we've seen before. She's predicting enemy behaviors with accuracy rates that our best generals can't match." "What are you suggesting?" came the reply from the communication device. "I'm suggesting this hatchling might not be what she appears to be. Her cognitive patterns, her problem-solving methods, even the way she approaches conflict scenarios, it's all wrong for a Zephyrian, no matter how gifted. I'm recommending immediate genetic analysis and deeper investigation into her background." Kaya's hands clenched into fists as she listened. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. All these years, she had wondered why she felt different, why her thoughts seemed to work differently than everyone else around her. Now pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together in her mind. When Draken ended the communication and sat down heavily in his chair, Kaya climbed down from the ventilation system. She walked into the study with tears streaming down her face, but her voice was steady and strong. "I'm human, aren't I?" she said, looking directly into Draken's surprised eyes. "All this time, you've been hiding what I really am. The stories about my parents, about my genetic mutations, it's all been lies." Draken opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His silence told her everything she needed to know. "The monsters who destroyed my people," Kaya continued, her young voice growing harder with each word. "The hegemony forces who killed my real family, they're still out there, aren't they? Still hunting down humans like me." Her expression changed then, becoming cold and determined in a way that made Draken's heart freeze with fear. The innocent child he had raised was gone, replaced by something fierce and dangerous. Then it's time they learned what humans can really do. 4 years had passed since that terrible night when Kaya learned the truth about herself. Now 16 years old, she had spent those years preparing for this moment. Draken had finally agreed they needed to leave Zephyr Prime before Inspector Vex returned with a full investigation team and genetic testing equipment that would expose everything. Their escape had started well. Draken's personal transport ship was fast and well-armed, designed for long-distance travel between star systems. They had managed to slip away from the planet without being detected, using fake travel documents and a cover story about visiting distant relatives. For 3 days, they traveled through empty space, jumping from system to system and avoiding all major shipping routes. Kaya spent the time learning everything she could about their ship systems, memorizing every control panel and understanding how each component worked together. Something deep inside her insisted she needed to know these things, though she couldn't explain why. On the 3rd day, their luck ran out. 12 ships dropping out of hyperspace, Draken announced, his voice tight with worry as he watched the scanner display. "Hegemony Patrol Fleet, Military Class. They've found us." Kaya looked at the tactical screen showing 12 red dots surrounding their single green dot. Even she could see this was hopeless. One transport ship against an entire patrol fleet was like a small bird fighting a pack of hungry wolves. "Papa, can we outrun them?" she asked, though she already knew the answer from his expression. Not a chance. Their ships are faster and newer than this old transport. Draken's claws moved quickly over the control panels, trying to squeeze every bit of speed from their engines. Hold on, little one. This is going to get rough. The first plasma blast hit their rear shields, sending violent shocks through the ship. Kaya was thrown against the wall as alarms started screaming throughout the cabin. More shots followed, each one getting closer to breaking through their defenses. Shields at 60%, Draken reported, his voice staying calm even as their situation grew desperate. Hull damage on deck 3. Life support systems are fluctuating. Another massive blast shook the ship so hard that lights flickered and sparks flew from damaged control panels. This time, the shot had penetrated their shields completely, tearing a huge hole in the ship's hull. Emergency systems activated, sealing off the damaged sections, but Kaya could hear the metal groaning under stress. "Papa!" she screamed as she saw blood spreading across Draken's chest. A piece of flying metal had struck him, and the wound looked serious. "I'm okay," he gasped, but his hands were shaking as he tried to keep flying the ship. "Just a scratch. We need to find somewhere to hide, maybe an asteroid field or a nebula." But there was nowhere to run. The hegemony ships had them completely surrounded, and their weapons were charging for the final killing blow. Kaya watched the tactical display as the enemy ships moved into perfect attack formation, just like the simulations she had solved so easily years ago. That's when something changed inside her mind. The patterns on the screen weren't just random ship movements anymore, they were a puzzle she could solve. She could see every weakness in their formation, every mistake in their positioning, every opportunity to turn their own strength against them. "Papa, move to the pilot seat," she said, her voice suddenly calm and focused. "I need to take the weapons controls." "Kaya, what are you doing?" Draken asked, confused by the sudden change in her tone. "What I was born to do," she replied, sliding into the gunner's seat. Her fingers moved across the weapons console with surprising confidence, as if she had been trained for this moment her entire life. The first shot came from the lead hegemony ship, a plasma bolt designed to destroy their engines completely. Instead of trying to dodge it, Kaya did something unexpected. She grabbed a piece of loose debris with their ship's tractor beam and used it as a shield, deflecting the plasma bolt directly into one of the attacking ships. The enemy ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "Impossible," came a shocked voice over their communication system. "How did they do that?" Kaya was just getting started. Using chunks of metal from their own damaged hull, she turned their ship into something the hegemony had never seen before, a weapon that used physics and creativity instead of raw firepower. She calculated trajectory angles that should have been impossible, using the enemy's own shots against them by deflecting plasma bolts with precisely placed debris. One by one, the hegemony ships fell to attacks they couldn't understand or predict. Their formation, designed to be perfect against conventional weapons, became their weakness when facing someone who fought like no one else in the galaxy. Within 20 minutes, 11 ships were disabled, their crews either dead or unconscious. The 12th ship's pilot, too terrified to continue fighting, activated his emergency broadcast system. "Command, this is Patrol 7, the pilot's voice shook with fear. "The humans aren't extinct like we thought. We just watched one destroy our entire fleet with a damaged transport ship. They're not just alive, they're more dangerous than we ever imagined." The message went out across the galaxy's communication networks, reaching every corner of hegemony space within hours. For the first time in decades, the word human was spoken with fear instead of contempt. As rescue ships arrived to help the survivors, Kaya knelt beside Draken, who was fading fast from his injuries. His breathing was shallow, and his eyes were growing dim. "I understand now, Papa," she whispered, holding his massive scaled hand in her small human ones. "Humans don't just survive in impossible situations. We adapt to them. We find ways to overcome anything. And most importantly, we protect the people we love, no matter what it costs us." Draken smiled weakly, proud of the incredible young woman his little girl had become. "You were always special, Kaya. Now the galaxy will know it too." The broadcast of that terrified hegemony pilot's message changed everything. Within days, the recording had spread to every corner of the galaxy, reaching planets that had been under hegemony control for decades. For the first time since the Great Human Genocide, people heard the word human spoken not with hatred, but with awe and fear. More importantly, other humans heard it too. 5 years had passed since Draken's death, and Kaya, now 21, had spent that time doing something the hegemony never expected. She had been searching for survivors, following whispered rumors and coded messages that hinted at other humans who had somehow escaped the massacre. The first person she found was Jamal, a young man about her age who had been rescued as a baby by a group of alien traders. They had raised him on their cargo ship, teaching him to fix engines and navigate through hyperspace. When Kaya's message reached him, he immediately contacted her through encrypted channels. "I thought I was the only one left," he said during their first video call, tears streaming down his dark face. "I've been hiding what I am for so long, I almost forgot." Then came Zara, a brilliant engineer who had been found by rebel miners working in the Outer Rim territories. She had grown up fixing mining equipment and designing new tools, her human creativity helping the miners find resources that others missed. When she heard about Kaya's survival, she packed her belongings and stole a ship to join them. More survivors emerged from the shadows every week. There was Damon, who had been raised by sympathetic scientists on a research station. His adopted family had helped him develop his natural human ability to see patterns and solve complex problems. Maya, a fierce warrior woman who had been living with a tribe of nomadic aliens, had learned to fight with weapons from a dozen different worlds. Each human brought their own skills and the knowledge of their alien foster families. But they also brought something else, proof that not all aliens in the galaxy were enemies. Many species had risked everything to save human children, hide them, and raise them as their own. "Look at what we have," Kaya said during one of their early meetings aboard her ship, which had become the headquarters for their growing group. "We're not just humans trying to survive anymore. We're humans working together with aliens who believe in something better." The Zephyrians who had been Draken's friends offered their advanced technology and their powerful warships. The traders who had raised Jamal provided their knowledge of secret routes and hidden bases throughout the galaxy. The miners shared their expertise in building and engineering. The scientists contributed their research and their understanding of hegemony weaknesses. What formed was something the galaxy had never seen before, a coalition of species working as equals, combining human adaptability and creativity with the diverse strengths of dozens of different worlds. As their coalition grew stronger, they began striking back against hegemony forces. They didn't just fight battles, they liberated entire planets, freeing enslaved species and giving hope to those who had forgotten what freedom looked like. Every victory brought more allies to their cause. The hegemony tried to stop them with bigger fleets and more powerful weapons, but they couldn't fight against something they didn't understand. How do you defeat an enemy who turns your own tactics against you? How do you crush people who inspire others to join their cause? The final confrontation came at Hegemony Prime, the capital world where the alien empire's leaders had ruled for centuries. Kaya, now commanding a massive fleet of ships from 100 different species, prepared to broadcast one last message before the battle began. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the thousands of ships that had come to fight alongside them. Humans and aliens worked together at every station, their different skills combining to create something more powerful than any single species could achieve alone. "Open all channels," she ordered. "I want every ship in the Hegemony fleet to hear this." Her message went out across space, reaching not just the enemy forces but also the billions of oppressed people living on planets throughout the galaxy. "You tried to erase us from the stars," Kaya said, her voice steady and strong. "You thought that by killing our families and destroying our worlds, you could make humanity disappear forever. But humans don't just endure, we inspire others to be better than they thought possible." She paused, looking at her mixed crew of humans and aliens working together. "Today, we fight not just for humanity, but for every species you've oppressed, every world you've enslaved, every dream you've tried to crush. This galaxy belongs to all of us, and we're here to take it back." The battle that followed wasn't won by superior firepower or advanced technology. It was won by something the hegemony had tried to destroy but could never truly defeat: hope. Planet after planet rose up in rebellion. Hegemony soldiers switched sides rather than fight against people who offered them freedom instead of fear. When the fighting finally ended, Kaya stood on the bridge watching as liberation spread across 1,000 worlds. People who had lived in chains for generations were finally free. Species that had been enemies were learning to work together. Children who had never seen the stars were looking up at them with wonder instead of fear. She touched the small dragon pendant that hung around her neck, a gift from Draken before he died. It reminded her that family wasn't just about blood, it was about the people who chose to love and protect each other. Humanity had returned to the stars, but this time they weren't alone. This time, they had friends, allies, and a galaxy full of hope. The future was brighter than anyone had dared to imagine.